Let's talk about Salo, or The 120 Days of Sodom. Salo is a 1975 Italian film directed and co-written by Pier Paolo Pasolini. The film is inspired by The 120 Days of Sodom by Marquis de Sade, originally written in 1785. Salo takes Sade's novel and updates the story's setting to the World War II era at the height of fascism in Italy. This was Pasolini's final film, as he was murdered 3 weeks before its release. This movie is highly controversial, not only by the direct shock value of its content, but also the discussion of what the meaning behind the content itself is. The film covers a variety of themes that include fascism, consumerism, capitalism, political corruption, sadism, murder, sexuality, and more. There is so much to cover thematically in this film, it honestly is just filled with so much, but I won't be deep diving into the greater meanings behind the film or giving a thorough analysis of its social commentaries and symbolisms. I will just be giving direct narration of what happens throughout the film with some details here and there. The Kino Corner has a great video you should check out if you're interested in the deeper analysis of the social commentary that's included in Salo. Salo has earned its place in cinema history, and many consider it to be one of the sickest and most shocking movies of all time. It is definitely one of the early movies to be considered of the extreme cinema subgenre. But there is so much more to Salo than its shock value, and as I said earlier, offers many commentaries on the rapidly changing world Pasolini saw around him, a world turning to massive consumerism and authoritarianism. The movie focuses on 4 Italian libertines, who are all extremely wealthy and corrupt. They are known as the Duke, the Bishop, the Magistrate, and the President. Salo is separated into 4 segments, inspired by Dante's Divine Comedy. Each segment, the story plunges deeper into the circles of hell. We begin in the Anti-Inferno, a place which resides in hell, but isn't a part of it. The film begins with a shot of the 4 libertines meeting together to sign an agreement of some sort. They pass along a journal and each signs their name. The bishop stamps one of the pages and says, "All things are good when taken to excess."
Tutto è buono quando è eccessivo.
The next few scenes we see soldiers and the secret police round up 4 young men to be recruited as guards for the libertines. They then attend the first step in the libertines' degenerate ritual. The duke, the bishop, the magistrate, and the president all agree to marry each other's daughters.
Quando le nostre rispettive figlie uniremo per sempre i nostri destini. Lei, Presidente, prenderà in moglie Tatiana, la figlia di Sua Eccellenza. Io sposerò Susi, sua figlia, Presidente. E le mie 2 figlie, Liana e Giuliana, andranno spose rispettivamente a Sua Eccellenza e a mio fratello Monsignore. La preparazione del nostro piano ha avuto il suo coronamento. Tutto oramai è pronto, possiamo partire. À l'ombre des jeunes filles en fleurs qui ne vont pas croire au malheur. Elles écoutent la radio, elles boivent du thé au degré zéro de la liberté. Elles ne savent pas que la bourgeoisie n'a jamais hésité même à tuer ses fils.
The libertines then go to different various locations to round up more youths for their devious plan. They pick these youths based off their appearance and examine them all like a herd of animals, making them undress.
Non sarebbe il caso di osservarli un po' meglio.
Spogliatevi.
They decide on who they want to bring with them to their place of debauchery. They choose 9 boys and 9 girls.
Ma signore, nessuno se n'era accorto. Una così bella fanciulla.
Signora Castelli, la porti via.
On their way to their mansion, one of the boys tries to escape, jumping out of one of the trucks. The soldiers escorting the libertines and their hostages gun the boy down as he tries to run away, leaving only 8 boys left. The youths are all gathered outside the mansion and are told by the libertines of their predicament. They outline the rules that they need to follow and are told not to expect the freedoms that are granted in the outside world, as they are outside the reach of legality, and no one knows where they are. They tell the youths that at 6 p.m. every day, they will gather in the Hall of Orgies, where the 4 storytellers will tell stories of debauchery to incite lust. The 4 storytellers are middle-aged women who are collaborators of the libertines, all of whom are sex workers. One of the rules given is that any religious act is punishable by death. The servants eavesdrop on the speech being given to the youths, and the Duke notices. He yells, "No servants here," and one of the guards, whose name is Ezio, rushes to shoo them away. He fires his rifle in the air and they scatter. One of the female servants looks back at him, and they make distinct eye contact with one another. This is an important scene for later in the story.
Via! Via I servi, cacciateli via!
We enter the next circle of hell, the circle of manias, also known as the circle of obsessions. One of the storytellers, Signora Vicari, tells her stories of her past as a young girl, in which she was regularly abused as a child by older men. As she got older, she became a sex worker and continuously was abused by men in exchange for money. During Signora Vicari's first story, the bishop grabs one of the youths assigned to him and drags him into another room, assumingly to assault him. The bishop later comes back from the other room, kicking the boy on the ground, and he angrily shouts for him to be punished, as he didn't do what the bishop wanted. One of the girls then tries to escape by running towards a window. The guards immediately stop her. Later that evening at dinner, the libertines' daughters are serving dinner, and they are forced to be nude at all times. One of the guards trips them, and proceeds to sexually assault her, as everyone watches. The president, intrigued by this, moons everyone, then prompts the guard to penetrate him as well. Signora Vicari then brings out a mannequin to demonstrate how to stimulate a man's genitals. Vicari tells the same girl that tried to escape earlier to perform on the mannequin. She does this unwillingly, and is berated for what they deem was a poor performance. The next shot is of the same girl dead with her throat slit.
E così anche le ragazze invece di 9 sono 8.
2 youths, Sergio and Renata, are forced to get married. After the marriage ceremony, the libertines force them to fall into each other as they watch. Before the two can have sex, they rush to assault them as they say that their virginities belong to them, reinforcing the idea that they are property of the libertines. The last day shown to us during the Circle of Mania, the victims are forced to get naked and act like dogs. A boy named Lamberto refuses and is punished by being whipped by the magistrate. He then tortures the president's daughter, and then feeds her polenta filled with nails. The last story Signora Vicari tells us is about a minister who paid her for her services. He tore off her clothes and threw them in his fireplace. She then tells us what he did next.
Cadde in uno stato di semi-incoscienza. Si gettò su una poltrona ed eiaculò, sprizzando il suo seme sui resti carbonizzati dei miei vestiti.
We now fall deeper into degeneracy when we reach the third segment, the circle of shit. The second storyteller is Signora Maggi. Here we learn why this segment gets its name. Maggi mentions how the libertines have a fascination with rear ends, and points out a particular fetish that the president has. She tells a story of a man who made her feed him her own feces.
Mi obbligò a raccogliere parte dei miei escrementi con la punta delle dita, somministrandoglieli come fossero una pappa. Tutto si svolse secondo la prassi. Il mio uomo, ingoiando tutto, simulò il pianto di un bimbo ed eiaculò nelle sue fasce.
Maggi tells a story of how she killed her mother over a dispute, and that makes Renata begin to cry as she remembers her own mother's murder. The Duke becomes aroused and begins to verbally abuse her. He orders the guards to undress her, and she calls on to God for death. They cite the rules on religious acts, and the Duke punishes her by forcing her to eat his feces off the floor with a spoon. The president leaves the room to masturbate. Maggi tells the group of how spoiled food can cause excellent diarrhea, and that one needs to eat hastily at odd hours to overload the stomach. The president chimes in saying we must try that at once.
Dovremo realizzare ciò al più presto.
The libertines decide to put containers in the latrines to collect all excrement of the victims. Later, the president is inspecting all the chamber pots of the youth to make sure that they are either holding in their bowel movements or that they are using the containers they spoke of earlier. I'm actually not too sure why he's inspecting them, but he notices one of the girl's chamber pots is full, and he berates her. He says that she will be added to the list of names in the black book that he carries. The magistrate has a mock marriage with Sergio, and at the reception everyone is presented with a meal of feces.
Sei capace di dire non posso mangiare il riso tenendo le dita così?
Non posso mangiare il riso.
E allora mangia la merda.
Later, during another story, the Duke pulls aside one of the girls. He has her urinate on him. The next scene, the victims are all gathered in a room and are forced to be on all fours, their faces down and their rear ends pointed up. The libertines inspect them and decide on whoever has the best rear end. They say whoever they pick, their prize is death. Then they decide that Franco is their favorite, and then they perform a mock execution, then promise him death in the future.
Venga ammazzato all'istante.
D'accordo.
Spara!
Imbecille. Come potevi pensare che ti avremmo ucciso? Non lo sai che noi vorremmo ucciderti 1000 volte, fino ai limiti dell'eternità, se l'eternità potesse avere dei limiti.
We reach the final segment of Salo, the Circle of Blood. We get a scene of a black mass-like wedding between some of the guards and the libertines. The libertines all dress in drag. They angrily demand the victims to laugh and dance. The pianist and Signora Vicardi tell jokes to make them laugh. After the wedding, the bishop forces the guard he marries to penetrate him. The bishop then goes to examine all the youths in their room. Claudio tells him that Graciela is hiding a photograph breaking the laws of the libertines. The bishop confronts her, and she tells him of Eva and Antoniska's sexual affair. They then tell the bishop about the guard Ezio's affair with one of the servants.
Dammela.
No.
Dammi la fotografia.
Se lei non mi farà niente, le farò vedere quello che fanno Eva e Antinisca tutte le notti, disobbedendo le vostre leggi.
The bishop and the other libertines rush to the servant's room where we see Ezio the guard and the servant from the beginning of the film having sex. The servant runs to the other side of the room and Ezio stands up nude and performs a socialist salute in an act of defiance. The libertines shoot him dead and execute the servant. The victims are all lined up and the names written in the black book are called. They are to wear a blue sky ribbon. The Duke informs them that if the others collaborate, they will be reprieved and return to Salo, Italy.
Che sono stati chiamati saranno cinti da un nastro celeste. Possono immaginare cosa li aspetta. Gli altri, a patto che continuino a collaborare, potranno sperare di venire con noi a Salò.
The victims are then taken outside where they are sexually assaulted, tortured, and then murdered. Some are branded, hung, burned, and even scalped. One of the victims' eyes is gouged and another's tongue is cut off. Each of the libertines takes a turn watching from a window with binoculars. The pianist sees the evil acts from her bedroom window. In an act of guilt, she jumps from the window and dies. The movie ends with two of the guards dancing together. One asks what his girlfriend's name is back home. He replies, Margarita.
Come si chiama il tuo ragazzo?
Margherita.